Alrighty, ladies and gents, welcome to, I guess this is the first in the series of the how to bonsai your Portulacaria Afra videos. Now we've done a few sort of prequels already, if you like, where we've talked about how to water it perfectly every time. If you haven't seen that one, I'll put a link up just coming up about now so you can watch that. And we've done a few repots of these jobs here as well, but in this one I want to talk to you specifically about getting started with creating, growing and developing a bonsai from this material, because here in the UK generally we use deciduous material, evergreen stuff that grows generally here in the UK, whereas this Portulacaria is very much a type of plant from a hot climate. Actually originates from KwaZulu-Natal in the area of South Africa. And yeah, these plants are very interesting, but they do lend themselves reasonably well to bonsai. So what we're going to do, just for fun, is create a how-to series, and we're going to create a playlist so you can follow along, and we'll go through it step by step and you can follow along at home. So I know quite a few of you want to join in and already have one of these. If you don't, I'll put a link where you can grab one yourself if you want to join in on this project. It's probably going to be a long one because these things don't grow particularly fast. This has grown reasonably well here, but it's not going to happen overnight. But if you're coming to this later, don't worry, because it just means you've got a head start and you can look back over those videos and join in at any point. So yeah, these are great great specimens to play with. They're quite easy to look after, and I think in the end we should have an interesting bonsai to look at. Now you can buy them in pots like this for very little, literally like £1.99 in the UK, maybe $3 or $4. Very cheap. You can get them from your garden centres, houseplant stores and things like that. I initially thought these were quite rare in the UK until I said it on a video, and now I've seen them everywhere I go. So I don't think they are particularly rare, but yeah, interesting and very easy to bonsai. So the basic principles we're going to cover here in this video: how to get started, what to look for if you're looking for one, and then the first few steps that we need to get done to get started. So as you can see here, we've got a few that I have bought already. These two I bought in one pot from the interwebs, and to be honest with you, you never really know what you're going to get on the internet, and I think the person that sold me them had already taken cuttings from both of these plants, which means they're not ideal as bonsai material. I'll tell you why: because you've got a central trunk here, as you can see, the central trunk, but it's been cut right in the center there. Let me see if I can put that forward so you can see. Right in the center, it's been cut off there, and that has then sent that out to the side and that out to the side there. And what we want to try and achieve for the very first part of this process is to gain a trunk, you know, a long piece here that we can then cut and then try and sort of grow out some branches from. And if this has already been cut, then that kind of determines the height. This is never going to be a particularly high bonsai because it's already been cut. Whereas if you let something grow as long as it can, you can maybe, let me just adjust this smoothly, maybe if we're lucky, you could let the leader, we'll call it the leader, grow out all the way up to here, and then you've kind of set the height about there, and then you can cut it and then it will start growing side shoots that you can develop. But if it's already been cut here, okay, you might be able to use this one and then cut that and then have it come sort of here, for example, but you're going to be limited on the height. So the best thing at the very beginning is to get something that you can just grow straight up to develop the trunk. So I picked this one up as an example, because if we look at this pot here, in this one, let's actually take it out and be easier. Okay. If you look at this one, I'll separate it so we can see it a bit easier. There's two plants in here. And if we look at this one, you see it's still one stem. What we have here is one single stem all the way up, and then we've got a couple of side shoots. Now this is the perfect start because we can just let this grow, and as it grows it will get longer and longer. You can see this is what we would call a leader. Okay, so it's the main central trunk, and it is still growing, and as it grows it will just keep getting longer and longer. And as it grows up, the trunk that we're going to call the trunk, because it's going to be a tree eventually, we get that in shot, this part here is going to get fatter, and as you can see it's already a reasonable fatness, and this will get fatter as it grows up. So this is the perfect bit of bonsai material, and you may well find them in the houseplant store or the garden centre all ready to go like this. So if you can find one like this, great, good start. This one again is okay. It's one central leader all the way up. So there's been, although having said that, just noticed it has actually forked there. So it's sub-ideal. It's not perfect, but it's not too bad, because you could nip one of these off and the other one will probably grow straight. But ideally this is perfect because it's one straight trunk. And now if we compare it to something like this, you can see that this is a lot harder, because it was one straight trunk, and then it was cut off there where the lady was taking cuttings from this plant. So although she sold me a Portulacaria Afra variegata, which is this one, she sold me one that really doesn't suit my purposes because it's only ever given this high. Now you could say, right, I'm going to make this my leader. Okay, so we could cut that off, this bit here, we could cut that, and then keep growing this one, and then we could cut that there, and then maybe it might sprout that way, so we might get some movement. But once again, you're kind of restricted as to how it's going to be. It's never going to be a long straight one because it's just cut there, so it's always going to have to be maybe a zigzag one, which is fun to play with, and it might be a very interesting one, but you're limited as to how you want to make it. If you wanted to create a sort of straight up type of tree, then you need something like this to let it grow on as well as possible. So what I would do with this one is just let it grow and grow and grow, give it plenty of sun, give it water when it needs it, and what it will do, it will grow probably taller than you need it, but as it grows tall, the trunk will grow fatter. See if we can make use of the focus. Occasionally we can. The trunk will grow fatter, which means it will gain some age to it. It will look older because it will be a fatter trunk. And then once, however tall you have it, you can then cut it down and start using the side shoots. You can always cut it down and make it into something interesting, but you can't put something back on top, if you see what I mean. So the first part that we're going to try and do is to create the main trunk, and the more it grows, the fatter this trunk is going to grow. As you can see here, this has been growing quite well, and this main trunk section has grown reasonably fat. That's not too bad, and the reason why is because these have been growing strongly and thickening the trunk as they've been growing. Now, as we've just said, this has been cut, so not the best one unless we do want to make a zigzaggy one that will always look a little bit weird unless you intentionally want it to make a little bit weird. But what we do have here is good cutting material, because that is one straight trunk. So if we cut that down the bottom there, then we have a perfect cutting that basically becomes that, and that will then grow on as one straight trunk. So that's probably what I'll do. I'm just going to cut that one off there, and you could do the same to that. Let that one carry on growing as long as it will. Cut that off, plant it up. They're quite easy to take cuttings from. The best thing to do once you take the cutting, you want to leave it a few days for the callus that you've just created by cutting it. Here, let's do it. why not, hey? Let's do it whilst we're talking about it. So let's imagine that you've got something like this, but you do have a long branch that you want to use. You can take the cutting, there's an internode there, which is great because internodes are where roots will come from. And you could just see those, you see this there, and there. The joints where the leaves come is where roots will come out, and there was a joint there where I've cut it. So that's our cutting now. There we go. That's our cutting. And now this is kind of the scar that is kind of moist and mushy. We don't want that to rot now. That's a little bit wet. So what we're going to do with this particular type of plant, you would never do this with a deciduous plant. You want to keep it as moist as possible and keep all the moisture in. But because this is a succulent, I'm going to leave this. I'm just going to leave it on the bench for a couple of days, and this is going to dry out and callus over. And then we're going to put it in a pot and plant it. And I'm going to keep it somewhere out of the way and out of the sun. Because what I did do last time, I made some cuttings, and my mistake was that these love the sun. So I made the cuttings, put them in a pot and left them on the windowsill, and it was too hot for them. So obviously these still have to produce roots and get the roots into the soil and then start taking up moisture before it can become its own plant. And those roots can't support the plant until they've had time to grow. So while it's growing roots, you need to protect it from the sun and only just give it a little bit of light and a reasonable amount of moisture in the soil so it can get those roots down and start creating new roots. So the first few weeks is important for these cuttings. So you want to put them in some soil and then once they've rooted and it's actively going, you know when it's rooted either because the roots will be growing out of the pot. If you see roots, my word, we're struggling with the, you can actually see some roots there and there. And so if you can see some roots growing from the bottom of the pot, you know there's roots there. Or if there's actually new growth on the top of the plant, then you know that the roots are growing, because if the plant is growing, it needs roots to be able to grow. So if you're seeing new growth, or if you're seeing roots, then you can then give it a bit more water, put it back in the sun, and it will grow away happily. But that's all I would say about the cuttings. If you're going to make a cutting, don't put it in the strong sun for a good few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Let it get some roots down first, and then you can put it out in the sun. So that's going to be a cutting from there. So what we're doing is we're taking something that was not the best bonsai material, and then we're going to create something that will ultimately become this. This here would have been basically a cutting like this that's been taken off another plant, and that's how they put them in the pot and then sell them as little £2 or £3, $3 or $4 cuttings. So if you can get something like that, it's a great opportunity to start building your bonsai. So that's what we're going to do first, guys, is we're going to build the trunk. Once we get a nice strong trunk, I'm just going to let that grow as thickly as we can. And then once we've got it the height that we want, or the thickness of the trunk that we want, then we can start the refining of the branches, the shape of the canopy and everything else later on. But the first point is to get the best trunk, and that is to let the plant grow as strongly and happily as possible. So a happy and healthy and strong growing plant like this, that's growing as quickly and as happily as possible, is going to produce the thickness and the height that we want. So that is video 1 in the how to bonsai your Portulacaria video. So that is your homework for today, guys. If you've got something that's not perfectly appropriate like this, that has already been chopped, then maybe see if you can create a cutting. If it's just got lots of short leaves like this, don't worry, because short leaves eventually become branches. Short branches eventually become long branches. So let it grow, give it what it needs, and this branch here will become a nice long branch like this as well. Eventually just let it grow, let it grow, let it grow. Once it's a decent size, give it a chop, plant that, and then you can make a start. So there's always something that can be done, even if you've got a bit of a ugly duckling. So if you're joining in on this bonsaiing journey, then why not show me how you're getting on? Houseplant Hacks on Instagram. So if you search me out, why not take a few pictures of your Portulacaria and show me how you're getting on? And if you're joining in along this process, I'd love to feature some of your baby bonsai as we go along. So if you're just doing this, creating the cuttings, or you've already bought a plant that you're growing on, take a snap for me. Send it over to me at Houseplant Hacks on Instagram. You can DM me a photo or just tag me in the photo there, and I will show your Portulacaria on the next update, so we can join in on this together and have this as something, as a community project. And I think that would be a lot of fun if we do it that way. So good luck with your own Portulacaria. Keep me posted down in the comments how you're getting on. If you haven't got yours yet, don't worry, it's never too late, even if you're watching this video months after I've made it, because it's going to be a long process. It's going to take many months and probably even years before we have a really nice refined bonsai anyway. So you can jump in at any time and get started, and all you have to do is follow along. I'm going to number these videos, and so you can catch up pretty quickly. And yeah, just shout us out in the comments or on Instagram, and I would love to see how you're getting on. In the meantime, I'm going to put this guy up. I've got some bonsai mix down here, so I'm just going to give him some extra soil so he can be getting going on his own. And then this guy will have his own pot as well. So we've got a few options here, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how we get on with these guys. But thanks for watching this one. Please give it a thumbs up if you're finding this useful or entertaining or somewhere along those lines, and subscribe for more Portulacaria bonsai videos coming along very soon, as well as regular house planty type videos every single week. All right guys, take care, and I'll speak to you soon.